Hello everyone, and welcome back to another EU4 guide. My name is Lord Forwind. If you do like these guides, please do like and subscribe. It encourages me to do more of them. Anyway, today we're talking about the Chimer. So, formerly one of the larger empires in Southeast Asia. At this point, it's in a decline. Similar to its neighbor to the south here, the Chimer starts off in a disaster. However, I will point out this disaster does not actually fire until you take over to the month of December. So there are several things you want to do before you go to the next month, because when this disaster fires, it's going to give you a 25% power cost penalty. So we want to spend what power we have now rather than waiting for that penalty. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is get a general. You're also going to want to move your army down south to here. This is your only province that'll be able to support an army the size of a force limit that you can build, around 20. You're going to want to set your rivals. When I have tried it, these guys here, Lan Yang, or however you say it, and obviously the White Elephant country down here, are your two nations that tend to hate you the most. Usually the guys to your north hate you automatically, and these guys to your left will hate you pretty much immediately. So you're going to want to do that, and then you're going to want to build up an army down here. I recommend just spearmen right now. There's no real reason you need more cavalry. You've got a good start. You're going to want to start a conversion going on one of your provinces, probably this one first. You're going to want to go up here and turn on encourage development. And then you're going to want to spend these monarch points improving provinces. You can also turn it on in basically all your lands, because you do have to do some development in all your provinces. And you're going to want to spend this. So ideally you go and you find a province where you can spend the 56 diplo power you start with. And then you look around, and ideally you find a province where you can spend the 86 admin power you start with. Now, you could spend this, or you could save it. You're going to have, when the disaster fires, you're going to lose 2 stability, which is going to put you in a bad position. However, spending it now means you get a slightly cheaper development, but then in the end, the cost of stabilizing your nation will be higher. So it's really up to you. I recommend actually saving it. Rather than spending it. On a couple of my games, I spent it all, but there's a reason you don't necessarily want to spend it all, and that's because you basically want to get rid of your king almost immediately. Depending on what his stats are, I had one that was particularly awful. But I do recommend getting rid of him for the extra 2 monarch points a month, so you go from 5 to 7, which is not great. I recommend you disinherit him now. It'll lose stability, which is why I think you should save what starting admin powers you start with, so that you can then boost your stability up quicker. Focus admin power. There's a reason for that. I'll go into that in a bit. And you're basically going to want to get back to at least 0 stability as fast as possible. And that's the best way to do it, while firing the guy also gives you an additional 1 in each of these categories. I found it more useful than keeping your starting king. Next things to do, you want to pass your monastic and education edict. That will encourage your conversion, give you extra 1% conversion speed, which is very useful in terms of converting your land, because you start out as Buddhist, Theravada Buddhist, but you have quite a bit of Hindu and animist in your land. You do have an option to stay with your current religion, stay kind of balanced between the 2 religions. And then once you complete this mission here, you'll get a choice to either stay Buddhist or flip to Hindu. So it's rather up to you. I find it easier to stay Buddhist, to be honest, because you're going to be conquering a good portion of this land and it's already Buddhist. Whereas if it's Hindu, you have to do more conversion. So that's what I recommend for the immediate starting stuff, basically, before you unpause. Other than, obviously, go over here, seize land for the crown, because you can always seize land at the beginning of the game, because everything starts at 50 loyalty. So that gives you 35. Go in and give away privileges. So, monopoly on incense, give away monastic temples. That's not going to be an issue for a time being. Oversight by the monastic orders. Go to your nobility. Give away monopoly on mining and smelting, and then importantly you grab this increase levies here. All of this area in Southeast Asia is mostly jungle, so the attrition rate for your army is absolutely horrific. So you're going to want as much manpower as possible. So you give away that, you give away rights of council. Want to get the equilibrium as high as possible. For the merchant guilds, make sure you get tropical city planning. It will make a world of difference. You can do private trade fleets if you want to do some naval stuff. And obviously free enterprise up there as well. That will get your estates into order. Just remember, every 5 or so years, make sure that your loyalty of your orders is above 50, then seize more land. Once you hit 40, you give out a privilege to get monthly admin power first, then military, then diplo. Admin is much more important for your start as this country, then military, then diplomatic. You're going to be spending most of your diplomatic points improving your lands. So let's go forward 1 month here so you can see how horrific the damage is. There we go. Okay. So all power costs are increased by 25%. You lose 2 stability and you lose 25 prestige. Now, unlike the fall of Majapahit down here, I said that wrong, but Majapahit might be more accurate. Your disaster cannot be cured within 15 years. Yours is going to take a little while longer. However, it's not as crippling as theirs. You receive no breakaway events, succession events, or others. You're just in a outright decline. Your nation is suffering. So I did neglect one quick thing, which is you're going to want to send your starting 3 diplomats. You're going to want to send 1 to start spying on Champa. You obviously want to send 1 out to try and get allies. I found Pegu tends to be a good ally, and Lana up here tends to be a good ally as well. Those combined with you, you're actually, hilariously, you're stronger than the White Elephant Nation here. Ayutthaya, well, however you say it. You can easily beat them in a war for like the first 4 or 5 years of the game, but after that it becomes really difficult because they're going to out-tech you. So in my opinion, the best thing to do is not mess around with them and merely ally both Pegu and Lana. Together, all 3 of you basically surround him on, well, obviously 3 sides almost. So if he attacks any one of you, the other 2 can basically beat him. Your biggest threat is going to be them, actually. These guys up here tend to get in wars with Vietnam, from what I can see. Or they go to war with Ayutthaya, and they get in trouble there. So, as you can see, disaster is bad. We've kind of started the procedures to get around it. Let's just go forward. You're also going to want to fabricate claims on these 3 tiny nations here. These are unique because they have stateless society. Basically, they can't expand, but they have good morale and good fort defense. But they're 1 province nations with basically no development. They have 6. And you're going to want to take them out relatively quickly. So let's talk how you get out of this disaster. So the way you get out of this disaster is you complete this mission, the Chimer Resurgence. Completing it, however, is harder than it would seem. You have to complete the 3 missions before it, have 2 stability and a legitimacy of 90. So the stability of 2 is why I told you to focus admin power and to save your starting power, because that will get you out of, obviously, negative stability, and it will get you back to positive stability faster. And you need to be 2. If you're lucky, you get an event that will save you 100 some odd monarch points or more. But to do it, you have to complete these 3 missions. You have to develop Angkor and to 15. You have to have Angkor Wat at tier 1. Thankfully, you start with Angkor Wat at tier 1, which is one of the better wonders in the game. It starts off by giving you a 5% tech cost and 5% monthly karma, but fully maxed out gives you negative 15 tech cost, which is ridiculously strong. You have to develop this from 6 to 15, so it's going to take you 9 developments, which is why I had you pass encourage development on the province or the area, and also do tropical city planning, because that will get rid of the tropical penalty and it will reduce the hills. You're still going to have a 45% development penalty until, and this is important, you wait until you get an event where the rains have come. If you get the rains have come on this province, which I have most of the time, it will decrease the cost by 20%, which will make it much more reasonable. So you can either wait for that. It's kind of random. If you're lucky, you get it, and you develop this. However, this should not be your first province you develop. You actually want to develop this one last. You have another mission here, rebuild the towns. As you can see, those provinces there in purple, and this one down here, which we developed already. You have to get them all to Dev 10. Most of them are nowhere near Dev 10. You've got 8, 6, 6, 6, 6, 5, 6, and 8. Thankfully, your southern provinces down here, with the exception of this one, which we already developed, are 10 already, which makes it a little bit easier on you. I recommend you dev this province here first, this 6 dev one, because then you can turn off this encouraged development edict, save yourself some cash. You don't really need to turn on the encouraged development in all of these until you start developing those provinces, but make sure you put it on when you do. It will save you a lot of monarch points, which you desperately need. You're going to be 2 tech levels behind your neighbors for quite some time. The third mission, so actually once you do that, obviously you get 100 admin power, which is nice. It will help you get to stability of 2. You also get construction cost, -20, and national unrest, -2. Now, do not trigger this as soon as you get it available. I can hardly repeat that enough. Do not trigger it when you get it available. You want to save it until you also complete the Restore Angkor mission. There's a reason for this, which I will get to. If you complete Restore Angkor, development of 15, you get -20% cost of building buildings, plus Angkor becomes your capital, right? You want to pop both the Restore Angkor and the Rebuild Towns mission. You want to finish them at the same time. This will decrease your building cost by 40%, give you 100 admin power, and -2 unrest. The -2 unrest is honestly not worth worrying about, but the -20% cost is great, or -40 because there's 2. You want to save up basically all your money you start the game with. The only thing you might consider doing is developing this center of trade if you get this to 15 development, which you really shouldn't. You could get a level 2 center of trade there, which is kind of nice, but don't do it. Also, do not start developing Angkor until the Renaissance has spawned. You're going to want to dev your way to the Renaissance, and one of the best ways to do it is Angkor itself. You could do it in your existing capital, but I don't necessarily recommend you do that, even though it would be cheaper to develop there, because you want to get out of this disaster faster. 25% is equivalent to developing the hills, and once Angkor becomes your capital, it will become cheaper to develop there as well. It'll be 5% cheaper. So I recommend trying to pop the Renaissance in Angkor. Some people may say do it in this one. I say do it in Angkor. So wait till the Renaissance fires in 6 years before you start developing Angkor. And once you do get it to 15, you want to have a lot of money saved up, but you do not want to fire these both until you hit Admin Tech 4. The reason you want to wait to do that is so that you can build temples. And using the temples with a 40% cost, they're now only 60 rather than 100, which will save you a lot of money, which is also why you should save up your cash. Once you do save up your cash and you can build the temples, you want to pop both of those, start building at least 5 temples. You shouldn't have to worry about the monastic order loyalty because we already set it up so that they should have a base of at least 59. Then you will complete the Affairs of Faith, which is where you will get a choice to stay Hindu, to go Hindu, stay with your current Buddhist, or switch to Mahavada Buddhism or whatever, a different one. I said it wrong, I apologize. I recommend staying with your current one, but it's kind of up to you guys. However, once you do that, it will put forward it will give the Brahmins at court modifier to your government, where you will no longer be able to convert Hindu religion. However, Hindu provinces will no longer contribute to your religious unity penalty. On the other hand, and this is one of the slightly more annoying things, because you're intolerant, those provinces will still be more rebellious. So once you do complete this mission and you do get Brahmins at court, I recommend you revoke it. There's really no reason to keep it. You're going to want to convert everything anyway, and you can pretty easily because you get +1 from monastic education. And once you get to stability of 1, you'll get another 2 missionary strength and a -1 tolerant of heathens, which will basically mean you can convert most provinces in Asia just using +3 missionary strength. Anyway, once you've done all that, you got to get your legitimacy to 90. Now, this can be done a couple different ways. You can spend 125 military points to raise it by 10, which is a possible move. The other one is if you haven't gotten any events that strip your reform progress, you will be able to pass this Aparaja succession, which will give yearly prestige of 0.5, yearly legitimacy of 0.5, and monthly heir claim increase of 0.05. This will basically mean your heir will almost have 100% legitimacy. So, one way you can do this, I don't necessarily recommend you do it, but you can, is you can, well, I can't show you here, but you can basically abdicate your ruler for a new heir who will start with 80 legitimacy. I'm saying if you've got like 40 or 50 legitimacy, it might be worth considering. And then you can merely strengthen your government once to get it up to 90. Be aware, though, that abdicating does cost you stability, so you'll have to spend admin points to catch up as well. I do not recommend that you try and up your diplotech and military tech until you have completed the Chimer Resurgence. You want to spend most of those monarch points improving your lands to Dev 10. Save your admin points to get to admin tech 4. And at that point, once you've gotten rid of the tech penalty here, the 25% power cost, you can then start either develop Angkor to get the Renaissance, which is possible at that point, or just tech up and then dev to it. If you do get a chance, try and get to Miltech 4, but don't push for it. I haven't ever been invaded as the Chimer with these allies. These guys tend to ignore you, especially if you keep a 21 strength army. It's stronger than both of what they can muster. So that works. So that is covered how to get out of the Dark Age issue. Once you do, if you get over 400 development and you have 2 vassals, and you get a province outside of the Golden Age, you'll get this event, the Chimer New Golden Age, which will decrease power cost by 25%, cultural conversion by -33%. So if you can manage to do this before you need to say dev to the Renaissance or dev to one of the later institutions, it will make it much easier to do so. You also down here have Cities of Temples, which if you can pull it off, get Angkor to level 3, which will take you 3,000 gold in quite a long time. You'll get -10% construction cost in all your provinces for the rest of the game, which is nice. Now, that is literally all I've talked about is to solve this disaster. By the way, once you complete this, the absolutism to 50, and you get 600 development, you get Cambodian absolutism, which is a really cool event. I won't spoil it for you. On the other hand, you also have this alternate mission tree, which involves warfare. You have Avenge Angkor, which is basically to subjugate Ayutthaya. You can do that. Ayutthaya, probably. Once you subjugate them, you get negative liberty desire from subject development by 20% for the rest of the game, which is very useful. You also have Subjugate the North, which will give you more subjugation claims against this whole area. However, I don't recommend to pursue any of those because they will out-tech you. There is another path down here, Protect the Cham, which I recommend you do, or start doing at the beginning of the game, because it's the only place you can really safely expand. The larger you get, the less likely you'll be invaded. And also grab you some development. Just be aware that you've got to make sure you don't get weak enough to get invaded. In order to protect the Cham, you have to own 3 provinces of the Cham culture, and you have to have the Champa as your subject. The easiest way to complete this mission, obviously, is just to subjugate the Champas, or the Champa here, which is the easiest way to go. However, all of these also have Cham culture as well, but the real goal is to subjugate these guys. If you do, you get a claim on the Viet. If you subjugate the Viet, you get claims on these islands. If you complete all of that, you get 1 yearly naval tradition for the rest of the game. That's going to come much later in the game, so don't worry about it. However, you can at least start this mission early on, and I recommend you do, because otherwise the Dai Viet tend to conquer this area, and they're a little bit more aggressive than your other neighbors, I found. So you fabricate claims on this. Be aware that you cannot declare war at -3 stability. You have to get to 2. So you do have to stabilize your country just a bit before you can declare war. It takes you 184 each time. That will go down the cost of stabilizing as you convert stuff, but you want to get away from 3 stability as soon as possible. This is why you may not want to abdicate your ruler, but it's up to you. Once you do, you want to invade the Champa. Now, be aware they have a stronger navy than you, so keep your navy safe. You can use it to help siege their capital fort, but once you do take it, usually their navy is in their capital fort. Their navy will beat yours, so run away at that point. Also be aware that this is jungle provinces here, so the attrition rate is absolutely horrific. You may want to split your army into 2, and you may also want to have a large reserve of manpower, which is why I wait past increased levies. It's easy to take these 2 provinces. This one is tough to siege. When I did it, I needed at least 13k troops, and then the attrition just cut it down to about 9. I kept having to, at the start of the wars, my first game, pull my troops off, let them rebuild manpower, and then go back in and hope to siege it down. My experience, 13 or so will work. Just be aware if you invade during like monsoon season, can be even more painful. They only have a 5k army. They will build up to about a 7k, which is not a real threat to you unless they get ahead of you in Miltech, at which point it can become a little bit harder. But 21k versus or 20k versus these guys is pretty easy. Make them your subject, improve relations. Be aware that you can steal development from them, which is really cool. Stealing development from them while this is your capital will get this above 15 development, and then you can do center of trade. Don't do this, stealing development, while Angkor is your capital, until you've either popped the Renaissance or you've decided not to build up to the Renaissance there, because it will increase the cost of developing the province. So just be aware you can do that. I found you could freely steal, I think it's 9 development from them, which is really strong, and then pretty quickly make them loyal again. Once you've conquered these guys, obviously you'll probably have to rebuild your manpower. You'll lose quite a bit. Conquer these 3 nations. They're pretty easy to conquer. You'll have these guys, the Champa, as your vassal or your march. You can either give them this land if you want to. I recommend you take it for yourself. There's no real reason not to, other than it's a different culture and religion. But you can convert it rather quickly, and it will give you 18 development. You could, if you want to, steal the development from here, but it really, I found you don't steal much. Once you've done all of that, we'll jump to a save game I made here, just to show you guys. You'll be in a much better position. So this took me 25 years to get out of this disaster. This is what the nation looks like once I'm done. By completing the Chimer Resurgence, you get 4 permanent claims here, which is nice. It's telling you to reconquer this area. It's kind of tough to do. I've played past this point in this game already, so I can kind of explain to you where to go from now. I recommend you try and subjugate the Leviathan here. These 2 nations go to war. One wins over the other. If these guys lose, they tend not to have Ayutthaya as an ally, so you can usually conquer them, regain this area, and go down this mission tree, reclaim the north, get subjugation claims on this area up here, which is quite possible. If they have beat the Leviathan like they have this time, you can do protect the Cham now, and then you can subjugate them, make them your subject. Be aware that they're going to be much more rebellious than the Champa, but they will bring good troops, and more importantly, their land is a pain to siege. Everybody will get bogged down trying to siege down your vassal. Making them your march just makes it even worse. Once you conquer these guys or subjugate them, subjugation is kind of the way the game wants you to play in Southeast Asia, but be aware that if you have too many subjects, they will eventually ally among themselves and try and kill you, or your rivals will promote their independence. The other option is you go west into this nation, but this is right after I did the disaster, basically. The tech is only Miltech 3, so they have Miltech 5, so you have to build up tech-wise anyway. You're nowhere near enough to be able to fire the second Golden Age, which means it's a really rough part of the game. At this point, Once this ticks over 6 years, 75, I would swap to military power. As you can see, I got a great ruler here. I abdicated like 3 rulers in a row to get this guy. Switch to military power, miltech your way up. Don't worry too much about diplotech, except you don't want to fall too far behind. Once your military is equivalent, as you can see, we have 21, they have 20, they have 12, and they have 12. It will be easy to overrun it, especially with the 4 or 5 from the Champa and any allies. Pagut does not tend to get attacked, so they tend to always be willing to join you in wars. And Lan Na, if you're allied to them, doesn't tend to get attacked either. Use both of them. You conquer this area. At that point, the whole world's your oyster. The game does want you to expand down here and conquer this, which if you want naval tradition, you can do. But naval tradition is not necessarily something that is super powerful. It's not like it's +1 military strength or something. However, the other mission up here wants you to, once you've restored the empire, you'll become an empire. And then it wants you to either invade China, which is quite possible. It wants you to invade and pick up land from China, which is tough, but you can do it. At this point, you're going to have a tech lead because you'll have wanted to upgrade Angkor Wat to 3. You'll be stable enough. Europeans shouldn't mess with you. You can easily get a tech lead on the Ming at that point. If you're really lucky, the Ming have lost versus the Manchu or the Orate, and they're easy pickings, at which point you can either take the mandate. Be aware that if you take the mandate, you have to deal with the rather annoying mandate of heaven issues, including the fact that if you have low mandate, your land tends to revolt on you. Or you can just destroy them. It's kind of up to you. I find destroying them to be better. You get more money, prestige. The other option is you invade Burma. And this is a weird one here. You got to have 20 provinces. But if you do, you get yearly army tradition 0.5 for the rest of the game, which is really useful. It'll mean you get better generals and stuff. In terms of the Chimer ideas, let's go over all of this. I've covered basically how to expand as the Chimer already. You've got 10 tax, -10 advisor costs, 10 morale, tolerance to true faith, proof relations, yearly naval tradition. So if you do the southern invasion and you get another one, you'll have 2 navy tradition a year, which means you can have some really great admirals, which is kind of cool. It makes it much easier to conquer Indonesia. You get trade efficiency +10. You're actually in a really good position to steal trade from China. Siam is not what you'd call one of the best trade nodes in the game, but if you, especially if you invade the Dai Viet and own that land, or even just force them to send trade to you, you can pull all the Cantonese trade to Siam and you will capture a lot of it because you will own all 3 of these centers of trade and stuff. You can basically dominate the Siam node really quickly. And then yearly prestige, which is cool. Ship durability. And then to end, you get 20% manpower modifier. I honestly wish that modifier came earlier in the game due to the sheer amount of troops you're going to lose in wars. Now, in terms of ideas, I find the best one is defensive ideas. I say this mainly because of the -25% land attrition and the 15% morale of armies and the 1 land leader maneuver. This is because of the attrition. The maneuver and the reduced attrition means you won't lose as many troops. You're going to have more manpower than your enemies usually, and the morale is really strong early on when you need it. Plus +1 attrition of your enemies in jungle provinces is just unfair, especially for the AI. You could make an argument to go offensive, get some siege, larger army, and discipline, but I find defensive is probably going to be your best first idea. At that point, you've got other options. You could go influence if you want to keep subjects happy, especially if you've subjugated a lot of them. This is kind of not a great tree right now, but it's okay. Diplomatic's another option. Reduce province war score cost, reputation, and diplomats keep people around you happier and loyal. I never had any issues with vassals when I played this full. The other option is you go admin ideas. I'd probably recommend defensive, then admin. This will just give you cheaper core costs. It's almost always a good thing. You don't need it, though, if you're subjugating, but if you're actually conquering and taking land, I recommend you take over all of Ayutthayah's land as fast as you can. Once you can, keep up with them in tech. Because it's good land. This will just make it easier. all of this stuff is solid. You can play rather tall as the Chimer if you want to. If you want to develop more economic ideas, we'll offset all the jungle penalties and make it easier. Those are basically the ones I recommend. I wouldn't recommend humanist ideas, despite being Buddhist. I'd recommend religious because you want to convert the lands, especially if you've already taken both of the monastic education and enforcing our heritage. You'll be able to convert things super fast. Plus the stability cost is nice. At that point, probably more military, offensive if you're going to conquer China. Quantity, just because you need it late game and stuff. And quality is always nice. You shouldn't really have to worry about military stuff that much. If you've subdued this area and you're invading the Ming, the Europeans aren't going to mess with you. No one's really going to come after you. You can easily start expanding to India or south into Indonesia. If you go towards Indonesia, be aware that this is all islands. It is an absolute pain to fight your way through. So make sure you have a good navy. Don't forget to build some trade ships to exploit this trade node even more. You can make some pretty good money from it. And at that point, the world's your oyster. Have fun. Enjoy the lovely negative 15% tech cost from Angkor Wat. And if you can manage to invade these guys, the Palace of Bangkok here is quite amazing too. You get more stuff from your vassals, governing, aggressive impact. It's amazing. There's some pretty awesome wonders in this area. So have fun conquering stuff and subjugating the whole Chimer Empire. So hopefully this guide will have helped you guys. If you did like it and it is useful, please do like, subscribe, all of that stuff. I do appreciate it. I do have a Discord. The link should be on my channel page. And hope to see you guys all in another guide or series. Bye for now.